What's going on, everybody? It's your big homie, the armchair operator, and welcome to today's video. Now, if you're new to my channel, thank you so much for stopping by. If you enjoyed today's content, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Become a part of the family. We would love to have you. And if you're coming back to my channel, thank you so much for coming back. I really do appreciate it. I hope that you also enjoyed today's content. So today I wanted to make a quick video for y'all, just talking about why buying used firearms just makes sense. All right, now I've been in the gun space for a long time, probably close to 20 years now, and actually my very first firearm that I ever bought was a used firearm. It was a old school Smith & Wesson model 649 chambered .45 ACP, and if I can, I'll put the picture up here just to show you what I'm talking about. Basically, that was my very first gun. And I think I got that gun maybe for about, I forget, man, it was a long time ago. It was like maybe $500 or something like that. And it was a good gun while I had it. I never had any issues or anything like that with the gun. You know, I was excited. Since then, I've purchased a number of used firearms over the years, and I have found some gems, and there are some things that I've learned along the way. So I just want to talk about some of the 5 reasons why I think that buying a used firearm makes sense. All right, reason number 1, and probably one of the most important reasons of all, is saving money on your purchase. Now, there's a term that gets thrown around the gun industry a lot, and it's this idea of budget, right? Budget firearms. The thing about that is the term budget is highly subjective. What's budget for me may not be budget for you, and may not be budget for the next man, okay? But let me make one thing perfectly clear. These damn things are expensive. Like, don't believe me? Think about anything out there in everyday life, right? Like going to the grocery store, or maybe you got to go to Lowe's or Home Depot, buy some stuff. What are you going to do? You want to go clothes shopping? You know, just normal everyday things that we all have to buy from time to time. Now, think about how many people that can actually go and drop, say, $500, $600, $700, $1,000, like a whole bag at Lowe's or at the grocery store or whatever. Like, most people don't have it like that. Now, firearms typically run several $100s to several $1,000s and up, right? So saving money on your purchase makes a lot of sense, especially if you're just starting out. Now, when I started out on this journey way back, I want to say like 2005 or whatever, 06, one of them years, I didn't have the financial capability that I have today. So it was more important for me. Like, I wanted to get something for my protection. And also at the time, I wanted to get something for work because I was working, you know, security at that time. So I'm thinking, you know, self-defense and duty guns. So I was on a far more limited budget back then than I am today. So saving money is very important. So that's the first thing about firearms, is that you can find some, you know, some quality. You know, you want to save some money. And, you know, just because a firearm is used doesn't mean that it's broken or it's beat up or anything like that. That's far from the case. Now, I will say this, though, when it comes to saving money, is that, well, used firearms in general, it also really depends on where you're looking, for where you're looking to get them. Now, shameless plug time, I got to give my respect to the team over at Bunker Gun Shop once again, not only for just supporting the channel, but one of the things that Bunker does is that they scrutinize all of the firearms that they get. They got to make sure that they're working, and so that way they can actually turn around and obviously offer them up to the consumer. So you're not going to go there and buy a piece of junk that just doesn't work, okay? And there are a lot of gun dealers that do that. So if you're thinking about buying a firearm, and you need to save some money, I would highly suggest looking at buying some used firearms, because, like I said, saving money is important, and if you're going to the right places, you're not going to get junk. All right, so that's my first point. Now, my second reason for why you might want to buy a used firearm is that oftentimes the gun is already broken in. Now, what do we mean by broken in? Okay, so a lot of these firearms have what they call a break-in period, where You have to run the firearm to get some of the clearances and tolerances to a point where the firearm is operating in an optimal level. So that means, you know, certain wear points as far as, like, for example, maybe wearing off a little bit of the Cerakote within the slides and the frame rails of particular firearms, or if you're talking about the feed ramps and the barrels. But let me just give you, for example. So this is my Beretta 9211 Sabia. I recently purchased this particular firearm used as well. But just to illustrate what I'm talking about, so a lot of times, oh, by the way, firearm is clear, no magazine in the gun. So when I'm talking about, like, and you can see this thing is kind of filthy because I haven't cleaned it. I actually run my firearms. Anyway, back to the point. So what I'm talking about is, so I don't know if you can see that in, let me try to get that in there. So you can see the feed ramp to the barrel. Sometimes with certain firearms, you know, you just want to wear that in a little bit, like when you're chambering rounds and stuff like that, just to get it down to like just a fine couple thousandths of an inch, so that, you know, it's where it needs to be for the gun to operate in the best possible manner. Sometimes it's just stuff like, you know, wearing some of the finish that are on the frame rail, so that way the slide can move back and forth in an optimal level. And I'll give you a great example of that one. So my Mossberg 590A1, I purchased that particular shotgun new. One of the things that I noticed about it was that the action itself was kind of gritty when I first bought it. And that's because it has all of that Cerakote, you know, protecting the bolt and the frame rail and stuff like that. But over time, as I was using the firearm, the action got a lot smoother because it was wearing that extra coating off of those mechanical components. So that's the type of thing that I'm talking about. Now that the gun, I mean, even though the gun ran fine at the time, now it's running even better because I have several hundred rounds through the thing and it's already broken in. So when you're buying a used firearm, like, a lot of times that process has already been done, so you don't even have to worry about that type of thing. The other thing about the break-in period is the trigger. So the way these things are manufactured, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes the internal springs and the disconnectors and all that, like when they're fresh from the factory, all those components, you know, they don't have any wear on them. So over time, as you're using them, things begin to loosen up and the triggers naturally become just a little bit lighter. And you know what I mean, because the trigger is actually broken in at that point, so that translates into maybe a softer trigger pull, a more pronounced reset, and ultimately a better shooting experience because the gun is already broken in. So that's another reason for why I think buying a used guns makes sense. Your gun is already broken in, so half of the work that you have to do to the thing has already been done. So let's move on to point number 3. Okay, now the third reason why buying a used firearm just makes sense is that you might actually find a gun that's being sold used that's damn near like new. To illustrate that point, I'm going to show this SIG P320 Flux Raider here, the Legion version. Now, I just did a review on this particular firearm. If you want to see more about that, go ahead and check that out. Now, when Frank showed me this gun, I didn't believe that this was a used gun because, I mean, it didn't really have any wear marks on it. The trigger felt like it was just fresh out of the box and everything, like everything. So whoever owned this particular firearm, matter of fact, I'll do you even better than that. Let me show you this here. Now, the magazines. This thing was clean when I first got this particular firearm. Like, so whoever had this, more than likely didn't even use it. Now, also the other thing about P320s is that you get normal wear on the magazine bodies, like on the side. I don't know if the camera can pick that up, but you get normal wear marks. That's just like just from inserting the magazine, dropping the magazine, so on and so forth. You know what I'm saying? But there was no wear on the magazine bodies. The followers, clean as a whistle. I could tell that the trigger was not broken in because it felt a little heavier for a standard X series SIG trigger. But the thing about it is, it's like I said, now normally these firearms, I think they come in around 1,500 units a measure. You know what I'm saying? So getting something like this at a used price, at a steep discount from buying new, that has basically not really been used all that much, man, listen, that's a hell of a deal. Think about it. That's a hell of a deal for the consumer. Now, for the person who traded in, of course, they're going to take a loss, granted. But for you, the shopper, I mean, hey, you make a come up. I'll give you another example. My Beretta 9211 here, right? So this particular firearm is usually MSRP, I want to say $13.29, and this particular gun, I believe, new was around $11.40-ish. Needless to say, I paid substantially less for this particular firearm, and once again, whoever had this particular gun originally might have only put maybe 1 or 2 magazines, if that, through this firearm before they traded it in. So it's like, I'm looking at this, I'm like, man, listen, I'm saving a few $100 on a gun that's basically new. You know what I mean? So even though I buy new guns, and don't get me wrong, buying new sometimes feels nice. You're the first person to ever get your hands on it. You know what I mean? You got that cool factor, especially if it's like a grail gun that you've always wanted. I totally get it. However, it does make a lot of economic sense to get a used gun, man. I'm telling you. Like new for a much cheaper price, man, you can't beat that at all, man. But anyway, enough of that. Let me go on to my next point. All right, now the fourth reason that I have for why buying a used firearm just makes sense is that you can find a gem in the used gun market. Now, I'll give you an example. Recently, I picked up this Springfield Prodigy, as you see right here. Let's just verify clear. Firearm is clear. Magazine is empty. Hammer down, boom, firearm is clear. All right, so this Prodigy. Now, here's the thing about this Prodigy. Normally, this is the 5-inch version, okay, if you can't already tell. And usually these firearms, I think they come in the neighborhood of like maybe 13 or 1,400 new street price, generally speaking. And this particular firearm, which was up for sale, used, okay, was substantially less than that. But the thing about it is, though, this firearm was not stock when I bought it. It has an aluminum Atlas trigger in it, and it also has, it probably has either their Atlas ignition kit or an EGW ignition kit, because this trigger is just ridiculous. So let me just show you what I mean. All right, that's all the take up I got. The brake and the reset. So this thing is coming in somewhere in the neighborhood of like 3.5 pounds. And anybody that has an experience with the Prodigies, y'all know the Prodigies come with that curved polymer trigger. It's breaking somewhere in around the 5 pound range, maybe the 4.5 pound range on a good day. You know, this thing just feels a lot better. On top of that, it has a lighter recoil spring. I'm not sure what the poundage, but it feels like an 8 pound spring on this. Now, look at this. Listen to this. And this is glass. It feels smooth as silk. This thing is air rackable. I can't do it because I suck and I don't know how, and I can't air rack a firearm to save my life. But my point is, this particular firearm has its internals upgraded, and I bought it for way less than what this thing would have been brand new. Just stock brand new. We're not even going to get into all the Atlas and EGW stuff. Now, with that, it also came with the Delta Point optics plate. So then, me being the person that I wanted to run it with a dot. So I turned around and purchased this Delta Point Pro. That being said, sometimes, you know, buying used optics also makes a lot of sense too, because the Delta Point Pro generally runs almost about like $400-500 brand new. I didn't even pay half that for this thing. And this dot is fully operational. It works. I had the mounting hardware to go with it, even though I already had another Delta Point Pro. So it's just like extra hardware on top of what I already had. But my point is, you can find some real gems in this thing. To buy this gun stock new and get everything that you see outside of the Surefire X300, I already had that, and get everything that you see here, like I added the dot, it can't, and if you wanted to buy the Delta Point plate, and this is the EGW Magwell, I installed that on here. To buy this and the internals, you're looking at close to $2,000 between the gun, the upgrades, and the dot, to buying everything new. This firearm, listen, I'm not even at the original new price for this, just the base gun with all the internals compared to a new gun. I'm not even there yet. So that's why I say, like, man, you can find some gems on the used gun market. So that's pretty much it for that. Let me head on over to my 5th point. All right, just to close this thing out and drive it home, save some damn money. These things are expensive. They are expensive. They are expensive. So if you can save $1 and be a smart shopper, hey man, listen, use firearms. Could be the way to go. But anyway, I'm going to end it there. What do y'all think about purchasing used firearms? Let me know down in the comment section. Let's get this discussion popping. Are you for it? Are you against it? Let me know what you think. And as always, y'all, thank you so much for watching these videos. I really do appreciate it. This is your big homie, Armchair Operator, and I'm signing out, y'all. Peace.